posed to the outside of the floor with each Authors of Pain laying on a ladder. There was a spot where Ciampa gave one of the Authors of Pain a suplex off a ladder through a ladder that was laying in the ring that kind of basically snapped in half. So some pretty crazy good spots there. And the end was DIY almost at the tag titles hanging from the belts, and Authors of Pain basically caught them and did that super collider powerbomb finish move that they do. Took both the DIY out and retrieved the titles. And I guess as far as the match goes, I thought it was really good match. I think there's been not the best ladder match or anything I've ever seen, but they had some innovative spots, and I think DIY puts good matches together. And then the story coming out of it, obviously, at the end is, as the show was about to go off the air, Tommaso Ciampa turned on Gargano as they were moving up the ramp and put a pretty epic beatdown on him with some crazy knee strikes and crashed him through a table to end the show. So what are your thoughts on the match itself and then the Ciampa heel turn afterwards?
The match I thought was awesome. Gargano taking the top of the ladder right in the face was pretty brutal. I expected, I don't know if that was gimmicked or whatnot, but that was one very destructive ladder shot. I liked everything they did. It wasn't a couple of the spots were a little bit over contrived for me, but for guys like Authors of Pain, who are relatively new to NXT, relatively new, and they put up a great match, and they're big dudes, but they're not like lumbering, slothing around the ring kind of big dudes, and Gargano and Ciampa can work circles around anybody, so I think they all really came together for a really strong match. And if they were going to go, I personally would have kept Gargano and Ciampa together longer. I think they have some legs. It's a really good tag team in WWE, and they have like a long career ahead of them, so I would have maybe done the split on Raw or SmackDown. That's just me. But I think you're going to get some outstanding matches between these two. And it's probably going to all play off the Cruiserweight Classic when they had their match there. So whatever it is with those two guys, I'm really looking forward to it. They could pretty much do no wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think these guys are going to have, probably their feud's going to be gold, I guess, as they say. And I think whatever they do, I mean, Ciampa, the reaction to him was I thought after the turn, I thought was pretty good, right? Crowd was pretty heated, pretty upset with him after what he did, which is good, right? I mean, that's what you'd want out of a heel turn, right? You don't want necessarily like one of those heel pops from the smart fans that like kind of when a guy turns, it's makes the babyface look kind of silly and everyone's cheering the heel. He actually got really good heat afterwards, so I think that shows that people really liked DIY as a team, right? Because they did, like you said, they put on great performances. All their matches were really, really good. People didn't want to see them split up, so I think the fact that Ciampa was the guy that did it and got himself a lot of heat should be a really good feud once they kind of ramp it up and get going with that. So what would you give the show overall, I guess, on our grading scale for the shows?
I'm giving it an A. It's very, very close to an A+, but nothing bad, everything watchable. I've watched it twice so far. I'm definitely going to go back and watch it again. It gets an A from me.
There you go. Yeah, I'm gonna go A-. I think it's a very good show. It's interesting you say you watched it twice. I was thinking about that. So I watched a few of the matches again on Sunday at some point, and I was thinking about how when I was younger, or back during like the Attitude Era, I guess, in that range, when I would order pay-per-views and I would record them on a VHS tape. That's showing my age, but I would record them on a VHS tape. And then I would go back and watch the pay-per-view, like the next day or the next night or something like that, just to see like what I thought of it, because there were good matches, it was good angles, stuff like that. And I really don't do that anymore with WWE shows, right? Like I'll watch them and like that'll be it. Now I'd never really go back and rewatch anything unless there's like a single match maybe that stole the show or something like that. But with the NXT shows, I find myself doing that a lot more frequently. Like I'll watch a Takeover show, and the next day I'll go back to the network and watch most of it, if not all of it, over again, just because I enjoyed it and I kind of wanted to rewatch and see how the matches were on the second viewing. So I think that's something about NXT that I think is a really good quality for me. It's like the rewatchability factor, right, where you can kind of go back and watch it again and enjoy it just as much the second time around.
Yeah, and there's so much taken. There's always going to be something you miss, so it's good to sit down and watch it and kind of give it a fair viewing.
Yep. Speaking of that, well, actually, the opposite of that.
Yeah, actually, Speaking of fair viewing, I'm not going to watch Backlash twice.
Yeah, yeah. I can't justify the Backlash, the double view on Backlash. That's a tough sell. Backlash was built basically around the debut of Shinsuke Nakamura. But before we get into Backlash, I just want to give a little shout out to our friends at the Damage 365 Radio Network.
Hey everybody, this is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and you are listening to Damage 365 Radio. And remember, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
And as always, you can find us in so many different locations right now, and most recently, ProWrestling.com. That's right, the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast is the official podcast of ProWrestling.com. So the exposure rates are through the roof. We're on, where we're on YouTube, we're on Stitcher, we're on CompuServe. Where else are we these days?
Oh gosh, yeah, no, iTunes, right? Podcast app. I mean, Blog Talk Radio, Damage 365 Radio Network, ProWrestling.com. You name it, and the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast is there. That's how it looks these days, my friend.
Are we on AOL?
We are on AOL, Instant Messenger, dial-up modem, Netscape Navigator. We got it all, buddy. We got all the bases covered. It's Lotus 123. We're there.
Tremendous call on Netscape. It's been a very long time since I heard that.
Now compatible with versions IE 6 and above. That's where we're at. So Google Chrome, Firefox. We're there. We're all over the place. So people should check us out on any platform.
Sweet. All right. So yeah, I mean, let's just. There's a lot to talk about in terms of Backlash. So let's kind of just give. I guess. Are we running late? I don't have. Not being. Listen. And for anybody sitting back there wondering why are these two schleps not doing what they usually do together, I have been busting my ass this week, buddy. I haven't had time to scratch my left cheek. I'll tell you that much. I finally get a day off tomorrow, but we got a busy weekend. We got House of Glory coming up this weekend.
We do. Yeah, there's a lot going on, with this week in general. I'm trying to get a car so I can drive myself places, where, like you said, work, gym. You got a lot going on your end, obviously, with work, taking care of the house and the what do we call it? The Bark Brothers, I think. Is that what we came up with? The Bark Busters?
Yeah, the Bark
We're
Brothers
still working on it.
The Bark Busters.
We're workshopping some things for the pooches. So there's a lot going on. But we got about like 20 or so minutes left on the show. I think we can go into a little Backlash reaction here, and then we can talk about what we got coming up this weekend. I know you mentioned House of Glory, so maybe we can let people know a little bit about that at the end of the show and where they can find us and this weekend.
Before I know you and I have, I know we've been talking about doing some current events type stuff, some breaking news type stuff. Now, I want to talk about something very quickly. It's not WWE related; it's UFC related. So, I'm just gonna I want your opinion on something. You got this for me?
Yeah, sure.
Angela Magana. She's a UFC fighter. Her record stands at an 0-5 in the UFC. 0-5. She was on the reality show. She is most notable for posting very scantily clad pictures of herself and hanging out with Beck Hyatt, another female fighter in the UFC. Now, Angela Magana has taken it upon herself for the better part of the last 12 months to berate a certain Chris Cyborg Justino on Twitter, on Instagram, calling her a guy, saying she's got male genitalia, and most notably she had taken a picture of Cyborg and she had put it next to a picture of the villain from Saw, the little doll thing, and she said, who wore it better? So now, I'm not a doctor, Joe, but that would constitute cyberbullying. Am I right?
I would say that's fair. Yes, that's not a good approach on her part, I would say.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what happens in the real world. Over the weekend, the UFC had what they call a fighter's retreat, which is pretty much meant they brought a lot of the fighters on their roster to a place. I think it was somewhere in Vegas, and it was like 3 days. They were going over marketing with him. They had like Kobe Bryant talk to them. They were feeding him. They were giving him product X, Y, and Z, and it's a really cool thing the UFC does. Now, for someone like Angela Magana, who is a superstar behind the keyboard and in front of a camera, unfortunately, she's not so much of a superstar in real life. So Chris Cyborg, who I'm sure you're very familiar with, confronted Magana, and the video starts rolling. And I'm going to curse here for the sake of the video. The video starts rolling, and Magana says, "I could talk shit about whoever the F I want," directly in the face of Cyborg, like pointing her finger at her. So what does Cyborg do? She cracks her one. Straight right hand, right down the pipe, right in the face. She doesn't turn her hips into it, but she it's more like a slap with her fist. If she wanted to, she could have knocked her out. But now you got Magana. She's going around and she called the cops on Cyborg, and she's pressing charges against her and trying to get her locked up on a felony. And I got to tell you, man, if you fight in the UFC and you have the cojones, or the female jones, that's a thing, to talk to another female fighter over the internet, and you're going to put her down and stuff like that, you got to be ready if she's going to walk up to you and clap you up in public. I hate what happened. I hate we're in this society where you can say whatever you want behind a keyboard, but there are no consequences in real life. You can't say that's like, if I was berating Austin Aries every single day on Twitter for the last year, and I saw him at a show and he walked up to me and punched me in the face, guess what, Joe? I had it coming.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, right? I mean, if you're gonna go at somebody hard like that, I think regardless of what method you go about doing it, right? Whether it's over the internet or on the phone or in person or whatever it is, like, you should be ready to expect a response from the person that you've been dogging. Whatever type of response it is, whether it's verbal or physical, you should be ready for something like that. If you're gonna go with that approach of just berating somebody to that extent, and in that insulting of a manner, especially over the internet, when it's like, that's probably the most cowardly way to do it. So yeah, I think that's she probably it seemed like she got what she deserved. It seems like, based off of how she was acting.
Yeah, now she's posting these things like, she calls herself, her hashtag is Your Majesty. Literally makes me sick to my stomach. And now her hashtag is like, she's like, "Thank you, Cyborg, for this payday that's coming my way." But now the problem is, your record is 0-5 at the UFC. That means you lost 5 times, and you lost every single time. That is atrocious. But now you have these female fighters who are friends with Cyborg, but they also don't stand for bullying. So now you have all these fighters, like, literally taking a number to bust this girl's ass. So they got me, Joe. I'm going to order whatever pay-per-view she's on just to watch her get her ass kicked one more time. She's a perfect heel.
Yeah, I'm not good with the numbers and the math, but I'm pretty sure that 0-5 is not a good winning percentage in any sport.
No, I mean, unless baseball, because if you get one hit after that, you're good to go. You're Hall of Fame, right?
No, that's something like that, but not exact. But yeah, no, when you're 0 for the century against whatever's going on, that's not a good look. So if you're 0-5 and you're talking crap, we need to that needs to be changed. So I'm glad in this case that Cyborg took care of business and got to the bottom of things.
Yeah, I just hope she doesn't. There are no ill effects. I hope she doesn't get arrested and stuff like that. I'm sorry to veer off. I know we're a pro wrestling show, but I feel like this is very topical right now. There's a lot of talk about it online. It's like those videos I want, like the bully justice videos. Like you look at a video, you watch this video, and like this guy's picking on this little kid for like 25, 30 seconds. Eventually the kid snaps and beats the living daylights out of the bully. When I'm having a bad day, I watch these videos because it really perks me up. It gives me a reason to continue and carry on.
Hey man, whatever works for you, buddy. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. We need to keep you going. We need to keep the wheels turning. And you do what you got to do.
What's not working for me? Backlash. So let's get to Backlash.
so Backlash from this past weekend. So basically featured around the in-ring debut or the SmackDown